Hey there, welcome to Quiz Time. I'm your quiz master, Sean, and I've got 100 questions for you about history. So you know what they say, quizzes keep our brains young, we have fun. So let's get to it, shall we? Let's begin with question number 1. The Battle of Hastings in 1066 was fought between which two leaders? Richard the Lionheart and Saladin, Henry II and Thomas Becket, or Harold Godwinson and William the Conqueror? It was Harold Godwinson and William the Conqueror. In which year did the Berlin Wall fall? 1985, 1989, or 1991? The Berlin Wall fell in 1989. The sinking of which ship in 1915 influenced the U.S. to join World War I? The Lusitania, the Titanic, or the Britannic? It was the sinking of the Lusitania. True or false? The Black Death, which devastated Europe in the 14th century, is thought to have originated in South America. Is that true? Or is that false? And that is false. The Treaty of Versailles was signed in which below year? 1918, 1919, or 1920? The Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919. Who was the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? Was it Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, or Angela Merkel? The first female Prime Minister of the UK. That was Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady. The Louisiana Purchase was made in what year? 1800, 1803, or 1812? The Louisiana Purchase was made in 1803. Which below battle marked the end of Napoleon's rule? Was it the Battle of Waterloo? Was it the Battle of Trafalgar? Or was it the Battle of Austerlitz? It was a Battle of Waterloo. Which U.S. state was the last to secede from the Union during the Civil War? North Carolina, Texas, or Virginia? The last to secede was North Carolina. What was the primary reason for the Boxer Rebellion in China? The primary reason for the Boxer Rebellion in China was foreign influence and Christian missionary activity. What was the main goal of the Marshall Plan? The main goal of the Marshall Plan was to rebuild Europe after World War II. The Opium Wars were fought between China and which country? Great Britain, the United States, or France? The Opium Wars were fought between China and Great Britain. The Boer War was fought in which country? South Africa, India, or Canada? The Boer War. That was fought in South Africa. In which year did the French Revolution begin? 1804, 1799, or 1789? The French Revolution began in 1789. What was the name of the last Queen of France before the French Revolution? Marie Antoinette, Catherine de' Medici, or Anne of Austria? And that would be Marie Antoinette. The Russian Revolution of 1917 led to the rise of which political ideology? Fascism, capitalism, or communism? It led to the rise of communism. The Battle of Gettysburg was a turning point in which war? The War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, or the American Civil War? That was a turning point in the American Civil War. In which year did the Berlin Wall get constructed? 1948, 1961, or 1973? The Berlin Wall, that was constructed in 1961. What was the main purpose of the Manhattan Project? The Manhattan Project. Its main purpose was to develop nuclear weapons. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Did George Washington write that? Was it Benjamin Franklin? Or was it written by Thomas Jefferson? The Declaration of Independence was authored by Thomas Jefferson, mostly. Who was the first emperor of Japan? Emperor Meiji, Emperor Jimmu, or Emperor Hirohito? The first emperor of Japan was Emperor Jimmu. Which treaty ended World War I? World War I ended with the Treaty of Versailles. The Vietnam War ended in which year? Was it 1975, 1973, or 1971? The Vietnam War ended in 1975. The sinking of which ship led the United States into the Spanish-American War? Was it the USS Arizona, the USS Maine, or the USS Missouri? It was the sinking of the USS Maine. The construction of the Great Wall of China began under which dynasty? The Ming Dynasty, the Han Dynasty, or the Qin Dynasty? The construction of the Great Wall of China began under the Qin Dynasty. What year was the United Nations founded? The United Nations was founded in 1945. The discovery of the Rosetta Stone helped to decipher which ancient writing? Was it Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sumerian, or Phoenician writing? It helped to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Wright brothers' first flight took place in which location? Was it in Dayton, Ohio, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, or New York, New York? The Wright brothers' first flight took place in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Who was the first ruler of the Kingdom of England? Was it Richard the Lionheart, William the Conqueror, or Alfred the Great? The first ruler of the Kingdom of England was Alfred the Great. Which battle marked the end of the Wars of the Roses? The battle that ended the War of the Roses was the Battle of Bosworth Field. Who was the longest reigning British monarch before Queen Elizabeth II? Was it King George III? Was it Queen Victoria? Or was it King Henry VIII? The longest reigning British monarch before Elizabeth II was Queen Victoria. What year did the Great Fire of London occur? Was it 1655, 1666, or 1667? The Great Fire of London occurred in 1666. Which explorer is credited with discovering the Pacific Ocean? Vasco Núñez de Balboa, Hernán Cortés, or Ferdinand Magellan? That would be Vasco Núñez de Balboa. Who was the last pharaoh of Egypt? Ramses II, Hatshepsut, or Cleopatra VII? The last pharaoh of Egypt. That would be Cleopatra VII. In what year did the Spanish Armada attempt to invade England? 1595, 1588, or 1601? The Spanish Armada attempted to invade England in 1588. Who was the first person to complete a solo nonstop flight across the Atlantic Ocean? Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, or Howard Hughes? First person to complete a nonstop flight across the Atlantic was Charles Lindbergh. The Crimean War was fought between which years? 1853 to 1856, 1846 to 1848, or 1861 to 1865. The Crimean Wars were fought between 1853 and 1856. Which treaty ended the 30 Years' War in 1648? The Treaty of Versailles, the Treaty of Westphalia, or the Treaty of Paris? It was the Treaty of Westphalia. Who was the first emperor of Rome? Was it Julius Caesar? Was it Nero? Or was it Augustus? The first emperor of Rome was Augustus. The Battle of the Bulge occurred during which war? Was it the Korean War, World War I, or was it World War II? The Battle of the Bulge occurred during World War II. Who was the first president of South Africa after the end of apartheid? Was it Nelson Mandela? Was it Thabo Mbeki? Or was it F.W. de Klerk? It was Nelson Mandela. What was the name of the ship Charles Darwin sailed on during his voyage to the Galapagos Islands? That would be the HMS Beagle. The Suez Canal was officially opened in which year? 1869, 1873, or 1881? The Suez Canal officially opened in 1869. The Treaty of Tordesillas divided the New World between which two countries? The Treaty of Tordesillas divided the New World between Spain and Portugal. What was the first permanent English settlement in the Americas? Was it Plymouth? Was it Jamestown? Or was it Roanoke? And that would be Jamestown. Who was the first ruler of unified Germany in 1871? The first ruler of the unified Germany, that would be Kaiser Wilhelm I. The Renaissance began in which country? Did it begin in France, Italy, or Spain? The Renaissance began in Italy. Who was the first woman to become Prime Minister of Pakistan? Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, or Aung San Suu Kyi? The first woman to become Prime Minister of Pakistan was Benazir Bhutto. Which country hosted the 1994 FIFA World Cup? The United States, Brazil, or Germany? The 1994 FIFA World Cup, that was hosted by the United States. Who was the first female U.S. Supreme Court Justice? The first female U.S. Supreme Court Justice was Sandra Day O'Connor. Who led the Solidarity movement in Poland? Mikhail Gorbachev, Lech Walesa, or Václav Havel? That was led by Lech Walesa. Which country gained independence from South Africa in 1990? Was it Lesotho, Botswana, or Namibia? Gaining independence from South Africa in 1990 was Namibia. What was the name of the operation to liberate Kuwait during the Gulf War? Was it Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, or was it Operation Desert Storm? It was Operation Desert Storm. What was the name of the international agreement aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions adopted in 1997? And that was the Kyoto Protocol. Which European city was reunified in 1989 after the fall of the Berlin Wall? Was it Berlin, Vienna, or Prague? That was Berlin. Which was the primary cause of the Chernobyl disaster? A reactor explosion, an earthquake, or a terrorist attack? The primary cause of the Chernobyl disaster was a reactor explosion. Which country did the U.S. invade in 2001 in response to the 9/11 attacks? Was it Iraq, Iran, or was it Afghanistan? In response to the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Who was the Soviet leader responsible for the policies of Glasnost and Perestroika? Leonid Brezhnev, Mikhail Gorbachev, or was it Boris Yeltsin? And the man responsible was Mikhail Gorbachev. Which treaty established the European Union? The European Union was established by the Treaty of the Maastricht Treaty. What significant political event occurred in the United Kingdom in 2016? Was it the Scottish referendum, the general election, or the Brexit referendum? It was the Brexit referendum. Which international organization was founded in 1995 to regulate global trade? The World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, or was it the United Nations? It was the World Trade Organization. Who was the first female Prime Minister of New Zealand? Jacinda Ardern, Jenny Shipley, or was it Helen Clark? The first female Prime Minister of New Zealand was Jenny Shipley. Who was the first female president of Liberia and the first elected female head of state in Africa? Joyce Banda, Amina Gurab Fakim, or Ellen Johnson Sirleaf? It was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. What was the code name for the NATO intervention in Kosovo in 1999? Operation Desert Shield, Operation Enduring Freedom, or Operation Allied Force? It was Operation Allied Force. Which Middle Eastern country experienced a revolution in 1979 that led to the establishment of an Islamic Republic? And that was Iran. Who was the President of the United States during the signing of the NAFTA agreement? Was it George H.W. Bush? Was it Ronald Reagan? Or was it Bill Clinton? And that president was Bill Clinton. Who was the first African American Secretary of State in the United States? Was it Colin Powell? Was it Condoleezza Rice? Or was it Eric Holder? The first African American Secretary of State was Colin Powell. Who was the first woman to serve as the U.S. Secretary of State? Was it Hillary Clinton, Madeleine Albright, or was it Condoleezza Rice? The first woman to serve as the U.S. Secretary of State was Madeleine Albright. Which South American country transitioned from a military dictatorship to a democracy in the 1980s? That would be Chile. Which country experienced a genocide in 1994, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 800,000 people? Was it Rwanda? Was it Sudan? Or was it Cambodia? And that country was Rwanda. Which Caribbean country was invaded by the United States in 1983? Was it Haiti? Was it Jamaica? Or was it Grenada? The United States invaded Grenada in 1983. What was the primary goal of the Camp David Accords? The primary goal of the Camp David Accords was to negotiate peace between Israel and Egypt. Who was the leader of Iraq during the Gulf War? Was it Saddam Hussein? Was it Muammar Gaddafi? Or was it Hosni Mubarak? The leader of Iraq during the Gulf War was Saddam Hussein. What major event occurred during the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta? Was it an earthquake, a power outage, or was it a terrorist bombing? It was a terrorist bombing. What was the name of the economic and political union formed by the Maastricht Treaty? The Maastricht Treaty formed the European Union. Who was the South African president who succeeded Nelson Mandela in 1999? Was it Cyril Ramaphosa? Was it Jacob Zuma? Or was it Thabo Mbeki? It was Thabo Mbeki. What was the primary purpose of the Dayton Agreement signed in 1995? Was it the end of the Bosnian War? To establish NATO? Or did it create the EU? The Dayton Agreement, signed in 1995, that ended the Bosnian War. What major global event did Nelson Mandela help to host in South Africa in 2010? That major global event was the FIFA World Cup. Who was the British Prime Minister who initiated the Brexit referendum? Was it Boris Johnson? Was it Theresa May? Or was it David Cameron? That was initiated by David Cameron. What was the primary aim of the Good Friday Agreement signed in 1998? Did it create the EU? Did it bring peace in Northern Ireland? Or did it end apartheid? It brought peace in Northern Ireland. Who was the founder of WikiLeaks, which gained prominence in the 2010s? Was it Julian Assange? Was it Edward Snowden? Or was it Chelsea Manning? It was Julian Assange. Which Asian country underwent significant economic reforms under Prime Minister Deng Xiaoping? And that Asian country was China. Who was the first president of the Russian Federation? Was it Vladimir Putin? Was it Boris Yeltsin? Or is it Mikhail Gorbachev? The first president of the Russian Federation was Boris Yeltsin. What significant global event took place in Beijing in 2008? Was it the Summer Olympics? Was it the Winter Olympics? Or was it the World Cup? It was the Summer Olympics. Which Caribbean country experienced a devastating earthquake in 2010? Was it Jamaica? Was it Cuba? Or was it Haiti? It was Haiti. What major environmental disaster occurred in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010? And that disaster was the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Who was the British Prime Minister during the signing of the Good Friday Agreement? Was it Gordon Brown? Was it Tony Blair? Or was it John Major? That would be Tony Blair. True or false? Nicolás Maduro succeeded Hugo Chavez as president of Venezuela. Is that true or is that false? And that is true. Who became the first female president of Brazil? The first female president of Brazil, that was Dilma Rousseff. Which country experienced a financial crisis in 2008 that had global repercussions? Was it the United States? Was it Japan? Or was it China? That was the United States. Who was the president of Mexico during the signing of NAFTA? Was it Enrique Peña Nieto? Was it Vicente Fox? Or was it Carlos Salinas de Gortari? It was Presidente Carlos Salinas de Gortari. Which Middle Eastern country experienced a revolution in 2011 that led to the ousting of its longtime leader? Was it Libya? Was it Egypt? Or was it Syria? It was Egypt. What was the primary objective of the Camp David Accord signed in 2000? Peace between Israel and Jordan, peace between Israel and Egypt, or peace between Israel and Palestine? Peace between Israel and Palestine. What was the primary cause of the 1994 Rwandan genocide? Economic collapse, a military coup, or ethnic conflict between Hutus and Tutsis? It was ethnic conflict between Hutus and Tutsis. Which country experienced a major financial crisis in 2001, leading to widespread economic instability? And that was Argentina. Which Asian country was the first to implement a nationwide ban on nuclear weapons? Was it the Philippines? Was it Mongolia? Or was it Bhutan? The first one was Mongolia. Who was the leader of the opposition party during the Rwandan genocide in 1994, and what happened to them? Faustin Twagiramungu went into exile, Jean Kambanda became president, or Agatha Uwilingiyimana assassinated? It was Faustin Twagiramungu went into exile. What was the primary catalyst for the Oka crisis in Canada in 1990? The oil pipeline construction, fishing rights disagreement, or a land dispute over a golf course expansion? It was a land dispute over a golf course expansion. Which country implemented a budgeting process starting in the late 1980s, which gained international recognition by the 1990s? Brazil, Argentina, or Chile? It was Brazil. And now, question 100. Who led the Zapatista uprising in Chiapas, Mexico in 1994? And what was their alias? That was Rafael Guillen Vicente, Subcomandante Marcos. Thanks for playing Quiz Time. Drop your score in the comments, please. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss Quiz Time when it comes out. And it comes out often. We'll catch you again in the next one. Thanks.